Today we're taking this prime rib, we're going to season it with some homemade seasoning, reverse sear it, starting it on the pellet grill and then finishing it off on the Weber kettle. We're going to go from this to this. I'm Johnny, this is View to a Grill. The first thing we need to do to start off this whole process is prepare our prime rib. The prime rib arrived frozen. I started off by defrosting it in the refrigerator for 48 hours. The time is 9 a.m. The starting internal temperature, it is 38.6 degrees. It is now 11:30. The prime rib has been sitting out on the counter for 2.5 hours. The internal temperature is 43.1 degrees. So not a lot of change in 2.5 hours. And I want you to know that this method works for any grade of prime rib. I happen to have a Snake River Farms boneless Wagyu black grade prime rib roast that's coming in at just under 6 pounds. As I'm taking this out of the package, this prime rib is so soft and the fat on it actually feels like melted butter. Now we can take a close look at the marbling on the prime rib. It's just out of bounds. If we do a quick inspection of the prime rib, there's really only a few loose bits that we need to remove. Overall, there's not a lot of trim work that needs to be done. As I'm trimming this, you can see how easily the knife just glides through the fat. When I was done, here's what the prime rib looks like all trimmed. And then I can show you how much I actually took off, and it was not a lot at all. Now that our prime rib is trimmed, let's truss the prime rib. You're going to want to start off with more string than you think you need. Here I'm taking 4 full arm lengths of string. We're going to start by going under the prime rib and tying a non-slip knot on the top. I'll then use my thumb as a guide for spacing and then go away from me and under the prime rib. Now you want to be sure to have this V shape because we're going to end up taking that out when we tighten the prime rib. Now I can take this string and go over and under and pull towards me and then pull out all the slack. I'll then make an adjustment and pull the string closer to our first truss. I'll then reform that V and then pull out all the slack. Now that I have that done, I'm going to play this game all the way down to the other end of the prime rib. Now that I'm at the other end, I can then wrap the loose end of the string around the truss closest to me, go over that center line, and then tie a few half hitches on the other side of the center line. When I was done, I had a trussed prime rib that looked like this. Now I also used this method to tie off my beef tenderloin. And if you follow me over on Instagram, you can see me posting pictures of these types of things throughout the week. Now that our prime rib is trussed, let's start making our homemade rub. For the homemade rub, you're going to need some sea salt, granulated onion, granulated garlic, fresh cracked black pepper, ground thyme, and some rosemary leaves. I'm just going to eyeball this, so in a bowl, let's start off with 2 tablespoons of sea salt, 1 teaspoon of granulated onion, 1 teaspoon of granulated garlic, 2 tablespoons of coarse ground pepper, 1 teaspoon of crushed rosemary. To crush that rosemary, I'm just going to put it in the palm of my hand and use my fingers to break it apart. And then we're going to use a half a teaspoon of ground thyme. Now that our rub is done, let's season the prime rib. I'm going to give this a generous seasoning. I'm not using a binder. The natural juices of the prime rib will cause the rub to stick. And then here's what my prime rib looked like when I was done seasoning. We're going to continue to let the prime rib sit out on the counter while we preheat our grill. Just for some time reference, it is now 11:47. So I'll turn on my Z-Grill's pellet grill and set the temperature to 220 degrees Fahrenheit. Once our pellet grill hits the target temperature, it'll be time to get the prime rib on. Now in this shot, you can see that it is 12 noon and our temperature is about 46.4 degrees. That means in about 3 hours time, our temperature only rose about 8 degrees sitting out on the counter. Not a whole lot of movement there, but doing that in my opinion, is essential to get that edge to edge red that we all love. So now our prime rib is on, and now we're just going to monitor our cook. I want to check this again at 1 o'clock, so I've set a timer to remind me. Here we are, it is 1 o'clock, so we'll get the lid open and check on our progress. It's been on an hour, and really it's not a lot of progress, 52.4 degrees. While the lid's open, I may as well rotate the prime rib for even cooking. We'll get that lid closed, and then an hour later at about 2 o'clock, we'll check on our prime rib again. Get the lid open, and here you can see that there has been some good color development on the prime rib. If we check the temperature, we've gone all the way up to 85.3 degrees, and that's some real serious movement on the internal temperature of the prime rib. Since the temperature moved so much in that last hour, this time I'm only going to wait 30 minutes before I check on it again. When we open the lid to check it, we find that the temperature has risen all the way up to 103 degrees. Since we're going for rare today, I'm going to go ahead and pull the prime rib out, and I like to do that for rare at about 100 degrees. Since we're at about 100 degrees, let's go ahead, remove and rest the prime rib. We'll take that out. I'll get it on the counter. So on this side is where we have that eye of fat right in the middle of the prime rib, and this side is looking pretty good. Now if we go to the other side of the prime rib, where we have that fat layer between the spinalis and the ribeye, that shows a little bit of blowout. But this is exactly why we trust the prime rib. If we hadn't trust the prime rib, our spinalis would now be separated from the ribeye, and it just doesn't look good. Let's get the prime rib tinted with a large sheet of foil paper, because if our temperature is still under where we want it, we can always finish the prime rib on the pellet grill after the sear. You may be wondering why I don't finish the prime rib on the Weber kettle. It's because the Weber kettle is going to be blazing hot, too hot to finish the prime rib. While the prime rib is resting, let's start our chimney starter. We have a full chimney starter of charcoal going right now. Once you see ashes on the top, get that into one side of your Weber kettle. I'm using a slow and sear today, so in that slow and sear, I want to move the charcoal around for even heat distribution. Now I can get the grate down and close the lid. I'm also going to want to make sure that my top and bottom vent are wide open. And then just for some time reference, it is now 2:45. It's been about 15 minutes since I removed the prime rib from the grill. So, and then at 2:54, I opened the lid of my Weber kettle so that we can generate some flames in the slow and sear. It didn't take long for some flames to start shooting up. It's now 2:57. I'll now remove my foil tent, and let me show you what the temperature is. Our temperature is about 115.9 degrees. If you recall the temperature when we took it out, it was 103 degrees. So we've gone up about 12 degrees just from letting the prime rib rest. And now everything is ready to go, so let's start searing our prime rib. My intention was to try and sear this using the cotton glove under the nitrile setup. You'll see during the sear that didn't quite work out. I'll just place the prime rib over the hottest part of the flame. Now when you're working with Wagyu, there's so much fat in it that flare up is going to happen within 10 to 15 seconds. When you see that flare up happening, remove the prime rib off the flame. If you leave it on the flame, it's going to generate a very acidic smoke, and you're not going to want that flavor on your prime rib. You can see here the gloves were getting kind of hot, so I had to take them off and get my big boy Lamson tongs. And then once you see the flare up, just roll the prime rib off and then reposition and start your sear again. And you're going to want to do that until you have a fully seared prime rib. This sear took about 5 minutes and 10 seconds in real time. And now our sear is done. Let's take a look at what we got. Here it is a beautifully seared from end to end prime rib. Again, if we had not trussed the prime rib, our spinalis would be fully separated at this point. Set it on a tray and back onto the counter. Whenever I cook, I'm actually making dinner for my family, and in this case I have some guests over, and you can see them starting to come out of the door checking on me. I'll get the same foil that I used earlier and tint the prime rib again while it rests. And I'm going to let this prime rib rest for about 15 minutes. And I accidentally left my camera on, but when you do that sometimes you can see that people have little patience. Here are my two boys, all grown up now, and this is them on my iPhone. So there's a big difference there. These kids are getting big. Now our 15 minutes is up. Let's get the full tint off. And I'm also going to give you another temperature check. 121 degrees. Well, that is a rare prime rib. Before we start cutting into this prime rib, I want to remove all of my trussing. We're going to go right down the center so you can see this beautiful cross section. And check out that color. My God, that is perfect. Edge to edge rare. Now I'll just take a little piece off the corner, and I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of river salt on that, and then a couple of turns of fresh cracked black pepper. And this is what my bite looks like. And let me tell you, this is an amazing prime rib. Definitely the best prime rib I have ever had, and who knew that the camera would be rolling to capture this moment. Now, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, go ahead, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching a View to a Grill. I'll see you guys next time. Take care, y'all.